Hello, Tar Heel Nation. We are back with another episode of UNC Hoops Talk podcast, and it is about the perfect time. I mean, we got fall weather here. Leaves are beautiful down here in Tennessee, North Carolina as well. Um, yeah, the cooler weather. We got Halloween, so all kinds of candy coming up this weekend. And best of all, we get some college basketball coming, and that's what we're here to talk about. So I am so glad that you are here joining the conversation. You trying to unite Tar Heel Nation with me. And I just appreciate your guys' love and support for the podcast. Keep sharing it and spreading it and liking and watching it and all the stuff that you guys do. I appreciate that. And if you aren't, make sure you are subscribed wherever you listen to podcasts or watch on YouTube. Pretty much search UNC Hoops Talk anywhere and you should find it. But if you have trouble, connect with me on Twitter at AllTarHeelDan or Instagram for that matter. We'll get it sorted out. We'll figure something out. But I would love to get the feedback from you guys as well. And hey, while you're at it, like the video, subscribe, all that stuff, hit the notification bell. But um, go and write it wherever you're listening to this. If you're on Apple Podcasts, again, anywhere, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, it's all those places. So go give it a review there. But we're gonna jump in, talk UNC hoops and the beginning of the season. So we have the exhibition game coming up this Friday, 7:30 p.m. tip. Uh, it says ACC Network Extra, so we're gonna have to stream that one on the ESPN app. Uh, but we'll get our first look at the Tar Heels. Obviously, well, win doesn't even really matter, but should be an easy win as far as that goes. But we're going to see some live action from our guys. I watched live action, the actual, used to be called late night, and it's always been one of my goals to kind of go there, but it really didn't live up to anything. The scrimmage there was not up to anything that I really wanted to spend my time doing. So I'm really hoping going against a different team. We're playing Johnson C. Smith. Sounds like a person, doesn't sound like a team to me, but it is an exhibition, and to be able to watch it, it's about all I need to get myself excited for it. So that's coming up this Friday. Then we got about a week and a half. November 7th is a Monday. We have the opener, obviously in Chapel Hill, UNCW, Wilmington, 9 p.m. tip. That one's on the ACC network. So obviously, can at least watch it on TV. You don't have to stream it. I guess you can stream on the TV too, but you know what I mean. For me, it means I can actually DVR it and go back and watch it again, or um, you know, do that kind of stuff. So that's a little bit exciting, at least for me. And then we're right into it. We have games, pretty much 2 games a week, if not more, going forward. We got College of Charleston November 11th. We go November 15th, and then we're into Halloween, or not Halloween, Thanksgiving week, where we go 20th, 24th, 25th, 27th in the Phil Knight Invitational. And we follow that one right away going into the ACC Big Ten Challenge with Indiana and Bloomington. So we're in the mode. Obviously, practice has started. We've actually had the secret scrimmage with Rutgers already. Not much came out about North Carolina's secret scrimmage. Usually, we get a little bit of stats and stuff. I really haven't seen anything. I have heard that we won by like 10 to 15 points. I heard that the starters didn't play a ton. Um, that Pete looked good. Think it was RJ looked really good in that, but really haven't heard much about that secret scrimmage at all. Feels like we always traveled in our secret scrimmage. This one was in Chapel Hill against Rutgers, so hopefully that was nice for the guys. And again, going against somebody else besides themselves in practice, that's always good when you're in that long preseason, or even if it's considered preseason, but in the practice mode as opposed to games and scrimmages and that kind of stuff. So I'm sure they enjoyed that, and hopefully they enjoy obviously being in front of a live crowd as well now this Friday in that exhibition, and hopefully they put on a show. And I don't even mean getting all showtimey or anything, but just actually just show how good they can be, and really just go at somebody and not give up going at them, but just keep going at somebody. I feel like in the past few years, which obviously what's different, under Hubert Davis than it is Roy Williams, but where we've kind of gotten ahead of a team or going at a team and then we kind of let up. But it can just keep going. And that's what this team's going to need to be because this year is going to be different than past year or last year. We'll just compare it to last year, where people weren't expecting a ton from us, and then we weren't good early, and people had kind of given up on us to where now we're preseason number one, if not at the least top five. Uh, and so, it's going to be a different type of seasons for these guys, and I think that's what they want. I think that's what Armando Baycott and Leaky Black and Caleb Love, R.J. Davis for sure, Puff Johnson. That's what they came to North Carolina for, to be the hunted, not to be a hunter. They want that recognition and to get the prestige that North Carolina is supposed to have, and now they have to live up to it. They got to come out every game. Like again, you can't just come out and think you're going to win because you're on North Carolina's team, and the other team's going to roll over. They're going to give you your best shot. So now we get to see what they're really made of, and I'm excited to see it. I think they're going to respond. Obviously, they responded the second half and late in the season last year, and I think they're ready to go this year. I think again, I don't think I fall a little short of kind of saying we're going to be another redeem team and we have to win it to have a successful season. But that's what the guys are going to be saying. They said that a lot at ACC Media Day is they're back to win a championship. That's easier said than done, and a lot of stuff's got to go your way. But at least we're in the mix, and like I said, we're top five. We're on everybody's radar, and we're going to get everybody's best shot. So I thought tonight, before we got into some exhibition, before we got into really seeing the guys on a consistent basis, and before we got too busy to kind of do this, because once we get into games, we're kind of breaking down what happened in the games, how guys are looking, what guys are doing, and looking ahead to the future games. I just want to look kind of at the season as a whole. And so I kind of put it out on Twitter. I put it in the description of this video of kind of who are your starters. I think starters are pretty obvious, pretty set. And Joseph Connor, sorry, on YouTube here has already answered. His starters are RJ, Caleb, Leaky, Pete, and Mondo. And I think everybody's pretty much going to say that. Obviously, the four are returning, and then Pete's a pretty obvious person to put in there, a veteran guy. Obviously, a lot of people were saying Puff or Dontrez before we got Pete. But once he kind of came in, veteran guy like that is, a stretch big, can be inside and out. I think it's kind of obvious. Hubert could surprise us, but I would think Pete would get that spot as well, and that's what people are going to say. But I threw it out again in the description. I threw it on Twitter as well. We'll check those kind of before we end as well. But um, along with the starters, who's going to lead us in scoring, who's going to lead us in rebounding, assists. I think I didn't put defensive stopper in there or best defensive player. I think we're going to agree that that's probably Leaky Black. But I also put in kind of who is this team's MVP and who's the X factor for this team. And so that's what, if you're watching on YouTube, that's what you're seeing there in that comment from Joseph. His MVP is RJ. He says Mondo leads us in scoring and rebounding. RJ taking the most or having the most assists. And then RJ's his MVP because what he does is so important. And then his X factor is the bench. That's interesting. And I haven't put a ton of thought into this either. So kind of as I'm going, I'll be kind of thinking about it. And I thought to break down a little bit as far as starters, kind of, again, who's leading score, but where kind of guys are, where we kind of need them to be have a successful season. But Rev here, and 300 as well. Good to see you guys join in here. Rev is starting to get excited. I mean, if you aren't excited yet, man, what are you waiting for? What's going on here? It's time to be excited. It's time. The season's here, man. I can't talk about it enough. But Rev here says he agrees with Joseph, but he says he's a big Leaky fan for the MVP. Fundamentals and D is what's going to win him the MVP. That would be interesting. I mean, if Leaky wins the MVP of this season, you don't expect him to be the leading scorer, rebounder. He could possibly have leading assists if we run through him a little bit more on certain nights or whatever. Obviously, I think he's going to be our best defender. I think everybody's going to agree with that. Um, but he kind of says, "Well, who do you think will be a surprisingly strong contributor off the bench?" Which is another good question, and another place I kind of want to go because a lot of talk has been about us getting a lot of guys back, and then also, the freshmen we've had stepping up into roles. Puff Johnson now, hopefully being healthy, stepping up into a bigger role. Even in Will Shaver or Jalen Washington, if he's healthy, stepping up to give some good relief off the bench for the big guys. We have Don Trez, we have DeMarco, Seth Trumble's coming in with a lot of talent. I would say a lot of expectations, but people do kind of expect stuff out of him and for him to be really good. So who can contribute, but not even who can contribute, but again, we've only seen Hubert coach for 1 year, and he's said he's wanted to play more guys, but when it comes down to it, it's a close game. Is he going to ride those starters? We get into the thick of ACC. Is he going to trust that bench? Is he going to trust anybody off that bench, or is he going to go back to last year and he's got the iron five, or maybe we're playing six, but it's a really short rotation. You know, it'll be interesting to see what Hubert does with this bench. And like I said, and he kind of says all the time too, it, they earn their time in practice, or they earn the opportunity in practice, and then performing in a game is what gets them more opportunities in a game, and more playing time. So, and I agree with I shouldn't say I agree with him. That's, of course we do. It's Hubert Davis, but um, I believe him when he says that. So can the people on the bench, Don Trez and Puff and DeMarco and Seth and the big guys, Will Shaver and Jalen Washington and Tyler Nickel. We got all these names here that we're listing. We're not going to be 10 deep. I don't think he's going to play 10 guys. I mean, where do the minutes come from? But who does he take out? Does he trust Seth enough to take Caleb out for a little stretch to give RJ a breather? Um, Go three, at the end of the game, does he trust him to go three guards deep? Have Caleb at the three and Seth and RJ at the one and two? Does Demarcus or Dontrez get some more run at either the three or the four? Puff Johnson, but who's coming out when those guys are coming out? Is it Leaky's coming out? Are we going small with only one big again? It'll be interesting who earns his trust and who gets those minutes off the bench. Because I agree that's the bench is going to be important, but it's not like we've seen in the past where he has trusted the bench and gone to that. And now we got these guys that have done it. They were the Iron Five and got to the national championship, so we know they can do that. Obviously, injuries then did hurt us because Armando got hurt and we had nobody that could come in and kind of fill that void. So we need the bench, but can they get to the point where he can trust it, and then who does it take away from? Whose minutes do they take if they come off the bench in that? So that will be interesting. So stay vigilant. On Twitter says the key is Davis and Love. We have to stay consistent this season, especially Caleb. His game needs to be more consistent. I believe Davis, Love, Leaky, Pete, Mondo. Key bench is Puff, Dontrez, and Trimble. So yeah, I think those are kind of the obvious names off the bench that everybody's talking. But even that, Puff and Dontrez kind of play the same position. Do they come in and play together? Do they split minutes? And again, whose spot do they take then? Are you taking Leaky off? Do we lose too much defensively then? You take Pete out, you lose that kind of help in the post that Mondo has. Move Pete to the five and take Mondo out. Do we again lose kind of the inside presence then? A lot of questions still to be answered. And again, it's not like I'm down on this team. I'm not saying we're overrated or we shouldn't be number one. We got a lot of talent, but again, we still have questions to answer. In my opinion, we do. So stay vigilant. Says RJ Davis is his MVP, and then we got JB2. Oops, I think I went past it. Let me scroll back here. Still preseason for me too. So JB2 has his starters as again the five that we've said. That's going to be what everybody says, and then his leading scores or leading scorer is Baycott, rebound is Baycott, MVP is RJ Davis, X Factor Seth Trimble. So yeah, again, and X Factor. I think everybody looks at X Factor kind of different. Does that mean is it your best player he has to play up to the potential or the expectations he has, or is it somebody that nobody, the dark horse that nobody's thinking about comes up and gives you a boost? Um, so everybody kind of interprets that differently. But yeah, I mean, if Seth Trimble is making a big contribution, does that mean someone else isn't? Is Caleb not being consistent? Um, hopefully it means all three of them are going, and he's given some good backup minutes then. So yeah, I'll get into my thoughts here in a little bit. Not that I, that I have all the answers, but Christian, good to see you. Says been a while. Pretty sure last time I saw you stream was earlier this year. Became a father since then. Congratulations, Christian. That is awesome. Hopefully, my newborn is good luck for the Tar Heels this year. It'll definitely change your life, Christian, if you haven't figured that out already. Hopefully, you're still getting some sleep. But yeah, it's no better feeling than that, bringing in the next Tar Heel into this life, and you just got to bring them up right, man. Bring them up yelling "Go Heels" and "Boo Duke." That's some of my kids' first sports memories, probably. But that's awesome, man. So JB2 continues best Tar Heels podcast. I appreciate that. Um, Definitely not the most consistent one here, as we're all over the place when we go, but I do appreciate the kind words. So 300 says I like Tyler Nichols. Again, I mean a lot of potential. Obviously, off everybody's talking about his shooting and in the live action scrimmage. Again, if you can call it that, it was. You could tell though he does not he has never seen a shot that he didn't like and that he didn't think was going in. So you gotta love the confidence. Obviously, he's gonna have to pick his spots as he's gonna have um, more spotty numbers or minutes than a lot of guys. So he can go in there and throw up some shots, but if he's not knocking them down, they're going to quickly be taken from him. So, and then he's with any freshman though, also got to figure out the defense, and for him especially, I think everybody's talking about his offense. Usually that means there's some work to be done on the defense as well. So. Yeah, we'll see. And again, whose minutes does he? He's obviously coming in, probably playing the four. He's not going to be bulky enough to play five. I don't know if he's quick enough to play the three. And so, how many minutes does Pete play a night? Because now we've talked about Dontrez possibly playing there. Jalen Washington, if he's healthy, Will Shaver, if he's able to contribute, could be in there. And now we got Tyler Nickel as well. So again, we got to figure out that rotation and who's got minutes where. He said we didn't have a bench, now we do. I mean, preseason on paper we do. I remember though last year doing preseasons, and Gil and Blake were often still on with me a lot. And we were all talking about listing all these guys. We had DeMarco Dunn coming off the bench as a freshman. We had Dontrez Stone. We had Puff Johnson coming back. We had we still had Kurt. Well, we thought Curran Walton would maybe be a starter. We had Curran Walton coming off the bench. We had who else transferred out? Anthony Harris, and Harris, coming off the bench. I mean, we had all these names that we listed, and it came down to five guys. So, um, again, right now it looks like we have a bench, and I certainly hope we do, because that's something else we talked about early in the season. Is when they weren't playing a lot of guys, is we got to play more. We got to play more. At soon we're going to hit a game that we're in foul trouble, or somebody's going to get hurt. And luckily enough, we didn't really have that problem. Obviously, we did have foul trouble. Well, I wasn't in foul trouble. The Baylor game where Brady got ejected and then Caleb Love fouled out. We had some issues there, and we saw that happen. And I wouldn't say that was the only problems with that game, but and then obviously Baycott getting hurt against Duke. I think it actually hurt before that, right? Was the St. Peter's game? He's twisted his ankle. He played through it against Duke, and then it really came back and hurt us the most the second half of Kansas after he retweaked that game was pretty much done. But yeah, so it looks like we have a bench right now, and knock on wood, we do. So Christian says going to need the bench to perform. Yep, absolutely. Felt like that was the biggest weakness in the tournament, and over relying on the starters. And then you know, again, I go back to last year. Me and Gil kept harping on we got to play more guys. Like develop these guys, even if they're not ready. We got to get them minutes early in the season to get them ready. Um, and obviously it worked out for Hubert Davis year one. He played those guys heavy. They came together as a unit, and we went on the run we did. So you can't really argue with it. I don't know if we can say over relying on them, but yeah, we we definitely heavily relied on them, and it worked. But I don't think you can bank that for sure. I'm with you guys on that. Um, 300 went to the four with no bench to the final four. I'm assuming he kind of is saying there. Went to the championship with no bench. Obviously, that's why people are so high on this team, because if we do have a bench now with those guys back, the sky should be the limit. The final four in the national championship should be within reach. And again, not meaning that you can't have any less, because there's bad breaks and all of that stuff. But Rev says, Christian, my wife and I had our first child in '93. Phelps, Reese, Williams, Lynch, Montrose, and Tiny Katie won it all that year. That's awesome, man. Let's see. Trying to think. My kids were born in 12 and 14. 12, well, we should have had one. And then we adopted in 17, 18. So 17 was pretty good for us. Uh, so JB2 says no bench is what cost us the national championship. But again, if we were playing those little guys, maybe we don't even get there. I don't know. Obviously, Dontrez, Puff, they came up big, and in the Baylor game, Dontrez was huge for us, right? And another name I haven't even listed, Justin McCoy is now a veteran guy. Does he get minutes in there? Where the three, the four, whose minutes is he taking? So stay vigilant. I like nickel too, my man. If Washington can shoot like I've heard he can get sometime, we're so loaded, but I see Davis playing 8 deep most games, maybe 9 early on. Yeah, again, it'll be interesting, because we are so used to, or we have been used to, Roy Williams playing a lot of guys early, and then it's like, how far do we trim it down? And usually it is 8, 9 guys, maybe a 10th get a few minutes. But will Hubert Davis feel comfortable doing that or not is the question. So Tremble is a beast. This is 300. And then Rev says, who would be the blue team if Hubie decided to sub all 5 out? Well, usually the blue team we talk about, what is it, the blue squad or whatever, is the last 5 guys off the bench. But that's the walk-ons. Then you're talking, Lebo and um, Bo Bo May and some of those guys. But if we went just straight 5 for 5, we had those 5 starters, and then I think after that you're coming with Trimble. It's got to be man. Who do you? I mean, it's got to be Demarco Dunn at the 2, right? And then you got Puff and Dontrez, and then or McCoy, I guess, one of those. Um, and then you got Tyler Nickel, but you need a big guy. So is it Jalen Washington? Is it Will Shaver? Um, yeah, if you're gonna, I mean, I guess it depends on who you're playing and what the matchups are. But so 300. I don't know if I want to put this on there. He says, "Mark my words, Dan," and then follows that up with what he thinks about Justin McCoy, which isn't very nice there. Christian also says, "I can't believe Justin McCoy didn't transfer." I really do too. I just feel like he's kind of slow on his feet, not quick to make a decision, and I hate to harp on a Tar Heel that way, but I'm not real high on Justin McCoy myself, and hopefully he doesn't listen to that. I don't like to say that about people on the Tar Heel team, but yeah, I mean, I forget he's on the team a lot of times. I don't mention him in there. I think of Demarco and Trimble and Tyler Nickel and Dontrez and Puff, and I've listed him several times tonight before, and I hadn't even listed him yet. But says maybe McCoy wants to concentrate on his studies more this year. Um, you know, I mean, really, his position would be, and I think he's too slow on his feet. I don't think he's athletic enough, but is to kind of take the Leaky Black role and be kind of like a defensive stopper. I just don't know, being versatile. If he can guard a 3 and 4 and possibly a 5, maybe he gets a role that way or carves something out for him. But I just don't know that he's athletic enough, strong enough, jumps high enough, quick enough, any of those kind of things. So I don't really see it. But um, I mean, you guys are awesome here coming in with all these comments. Um, it could still be a UVA double agent. Stay vigilant, says Dunn had 16 points in scrimmage. Definitely a good sign. Yeah, I mean, guys shot the ball well. Uh, it's just whether it translates, and again, if they get the opportunity in a game. But We're what 25 minutes in here, and I just wanted to kind of go through the roster a little bit and kind of give my 2 cents, whatever that's worth. I guess 2 cents is worth 2 cents, but maybe mine's worth a little bit less. But so I do agree, obviously, on those starters. I think there's no way it's not Caleb Love, R.J. Davis, Leaky Black, Pete Nance, and Armando. Um, so as far as leaders go for this team, I, I think any given night we could have. I don't think there's many nights that Leakier is going to be our leading scorer. I think that's a bad game if he is. But obviously, we've seen it where RJ could be our leading scorer, Caleb Love can be our leading scorer. We'll kind of see how Pete Nance fits into the offense that way. Obviously, Brady Manick was our leading scorer plenty of times as well. So if he can, I think he's going to be a little more versatile. I think he's going to shoot. Everybody has said he's not going to shoot the ball as well as Brady Manick did, but if he can knock down some threes, and then he's going to have more of an inside presence than Brady did. But if he can kind of mix that up and be a mismatch there, if they put a smaller guy on, he goes inside and scores, and they switch to have a bigger guy on, he pops out and hits a couple of threes or something like that. He could be a tough matchup, and in that way, I guess he could be one of our leading scorers. But to me, he's probably like our fourth option out of the starters. And obviously Mondo getting his. And I don't have last year's stats to see what people averaged, but I honestly kind of see Caleb Love or RJ Davis maybe leading us, maybe not. Maybe, I mean, obviously Mondo could. I'm not saying he couldn't, but maybe just with all of his offensive rebounds and plus them going inside and stuff, maybe he is. But I could play devil's advocate very easily and say Mondo won't be our leading scorer. I think rebounder, if he's not our leading rebounder, then something's wrong. But kind of my one of my predictions would be, I think he's going to possibly average less rebounds than he did last year, and I think that's just because he'll have more help with Pete Nance. If it's Jalen Washington, Will Shaver in there some, maybe obviously his minutes could go down, which for some people, it can help you and you have better stats because you're fresher when you're out there and you can go all out and you have somebody that come in. Last year, those guys, Mondo knew he had no sub coming for him, so maybe he saved a little bit and he missed some points or some rebounds here and there. But I think Pete Nance will give him enough help rebounding that maybe he averages less rebounds than he did last year. I mean, at the end of the year, he was getting what 18 and 13 every game. He was close to a couple of 20 games if he didn't already. But that's just kind of average wise. And I'm not saying he won't get any 20-point rebound games or 15 rebounds a game. But I just think average wise, he's going to dip a little bit. And I think that's almost a good thing, giving him a little bit of rest and getting him some help. So that's rebounder. Assists, I think you got to go with RJ because if they play like we did at the end of the season last year, he's got the ball in his hands the most of the time, and he is a willing passer, willing setup guy. And so I think he's got to lead. I said it earlier. I think um, Leaky Black could lead us in assists in some games. I think Caleb could. I don't think it's as likely, but definitely possible. And Seth Tremble, maybe he comes off the bench again. His problem is going to be minutes. How many minutes does Trouble get behind Love and Davis? Like, how much are we taking on them off the court? Last year they probably played 36 to 38 minutes a game at least. Maybe we can get them down to 30, and maybe subbing between both of them, taking them out. Maybe he can get 15 minutes a game. Give if he can give Caleb 8 minutes rest and he gives RJ 7, 8 minutes left. I mean, that's 15 minutes, right? Between them. Obviously, the question there is going to be how's the chemistry, because we saw the freshman year, RJ and Caleb, and maybe again, obviously that was in Roy's system. Maybe things are different, but we saw them kind of struggle together. They did a little bit better at the end of the year, and then they just played so much together last year under Hubert Davis. Eventually, it clicked, and obviously later in the season, RJ kind of became the point guard, and Caleb moved off the ball. But how does that chemistry work with Seth Tremble? Is it the same? That'll be another question. So yeah, where are they? So that's what assists. What else did I say? MVP of the team. I'll think about that one a little bit more. X factor of this. team. Again, I think it's kind of how do you look at it? Is the X factor that somebody's living up to the expectations, or is it somebody kind of coming out of the blue and playing better? I'm going to think about that one a little bit as well as I catch up on comments here. You can't handle the truth says stay healthy, stay hungry, stay focused. We'll be in Houston. And he says Pete Nance will be the difference this year. 300 says November 7th, we are on the court. Well, I mean, we got the 28th first. I don't think we overlook that. Again, I don't think it's a game or anything. Um, and obviously, it doesn't even count for wins loss because it's an exhibition. But yeah, November 7th obviously will be exciting. UNC Wilmington at our place. I mean, and we get College of Charleston's at home as well because we went to their place last year, right? So yeah, so we start the home. We got 5 home games here before we go out to Portland for that Phil Knight Invitational. So that's a nice little opening for us. It should be good. Stay vigilant says Pete Nance worries me a bit from deep. Hopefully he's good enough to still stretch the floor. From what I've heard, he is. Thinking back to live action, I don't know that we saw him hit anything in live action, right? But it sounds like he's a solid, again, not Brady Manic shooter, but I don't think he has to be as well. If he can knock down a couple, make people be honest, um, and we'll be good to go from there. So let's see here. You can't handle the truth. Podcast says Pete can play the 5 if Mano gets hurt or in foul trouble. Couldn't do that last year, right? And that's a big difference. And hopefully we have other people that can as well for stretches. If it's long term injury, I think we got more questions there. But if it's just foul trouble or anything like that, hopefully Will Shaver can come give us, 5 minutes if we need it. Or Jalen Washington. I mean, it sounds like he's got all the talent. It's just whether he's healthy and can bounce back. But if he is healthy, give us 5-10 minutes if we need it. He says that also enables Puff and Styles to play the 4 and still have a presence down low, somewhat. But that also takes away a big presence as well. So that'll be interesting. Stay vigilant says we're better with Davis the one live off ball. Yes, we saw that late in the season. Plus, RJ should have been on preseason Bob Cousy award list. Yeah, I've heard this talked about, and it's crazy. It sounds like Caleb Love was, and RJ just isn't. And it's like they're saying Caleb's our point guard and RJ is our 2 guard, which obviously all the Tar Heel fans, everybody that's paying attention, kind of feels that's different. So I don't know if that's just an overlook what happened. And I don't know too. I think halfway through the season you can be put on that list. You don't have to be from the preseason, but I could be wrong there. But for sure. So kind of ending out my questions from what I put on Twitter, and I'll look to see if anybody responded on Twitter to it. If they didn't just come here, hopefully they just came and joined us on the YouTube live stream. But I put our X Factor, and I put MVP of this season. So for me, the X factor of this season, I think, gosh, you could go in so many different ways. I know somebody has said that Caleb Love being consistent is their X factor. A lot of people have said the bench is the X factor. Um, Obviously, you could be really general and say, well, staying healthy is our X factor if we can do that. Um, I think I'm going to go with Pete Nance. And somebody just yeah, stay vigilant. Just kind of said that Pete Nance worries me, and I'm not saying that Pete Nance worries me, but I think he's our X factor. How he fits in and fills that void. Is he too much of a low post presence that we're clogging it up? Remember, 2 years ago, Roy's last year, we had all those bigs. We had Sharp, we had Kessler that didn't play much, but was down in there. We still had Garrison Brooks, and we had Mondo. We had 4 guys, and they just couldn't coexist. And then Caleb didn't have the space to create and get to the hole. RJ couldn't dribble, penetrate to kick to Manic in the corner for a 3 or anything like that. So does he have too much of an inside presence that we clog it up in there? And like Stay Vigilant was saying, does he knock down enough threes to make people play off or to play on him and open up that space, make people be honest with him? So, and again, I think he has the capability. I think he's going to be a nice fit in there. But that's my X factor is how he fits in there. If he fits in nice, again, we're right there. There's no reason we shouldn't win the national championship or go to the Final Four or whatever you want to say, unless there's something unlucky that happens or injuries or something like that. If he doesn't fit as well, what do we do? Where do we go? Because it's not a guy I think that, it's he came here to play. Obviously, he wants to win, go to the tournament. He never got that playing at Northwestern is to play in the tournament, but he also didn't come to sit on the bench for a Jalen Washington or a Tyler Nickel. And are we willing to put one of those guys in as a starter if Pete Nance isn't fitting in there? Are we willing to take away, half a minute if Pete Nance is playing 15 minutes and not 25 minutes or whatever it is? Is that going to be a problem, or is he going to accept that and go with we're winning? Because remember, we started last year off with another big guy that didn't end the season at North Carolina, and we didn't hear a lot about why he wasn't there. But when it did start to trickle out, it sounded as more of like whatever attitude kind of stuff and chemistry kind of stuff. And again, we haven't heard much, but everything that I've kind of seen or heard is kind of like it just wasn't the right fit. So how does he fit? And Hubert Davis seems high on him. All the guys see high on him. So it seems like it'll be good. And I think he's got the skills to make it fit. Now we got to go and show it. So that's going to be my X factor. MVP of the season. Again, we can go in so many different ways. As we're waiting for that, Rev, big shout out, my guy. Says, hey guys, why not hit the like button to help Dan's channel? I appreciate that, man. And it does help. You guys hit like. If you're not subscribed, subscribe and then hit the little bell next to it so that when I go live like this, because I don't have a regular schedule, then you'll get the notification. You can hop on and join the conversation. You guys have been awesome tonight. I meant to kind of put out. I'd love to kind of make YouTube shorts to kind of let people know when I'm about to, a day ahead of time, or even in the morning. That that night I'm going to do a podcast. Let you guys kind of know, or put it on Twitter, even like, hey, tonight podcast live on YouTube. Whatever. I didn't do any of that. You guys are all here. Comments have been going so much that I can't even hardly keep up. So you guys are awesome. Rev says good points. I can't handle and stay vigilant. So yeah, again, you guys have been killing it with the comments and making. He says you can't handle, not I can't handle. Yeah, you guys got some crazy names here for your YouTube channels. I'm glad, Rev, you allow me to say that. You can't handle the truth podcast. I hope you're okay with us shortening in that as well. But you guys are killing it with the points that you're making. But anyway, we're gonna kind of end it here. I don't want to go too long, and we're already at 38 minutes here, so I guess that's probably considered long already. But MVP of this season for the Tar Heels for me, my prediction before any exhibitions. Haven't heard much from the secret scrimmage, and as you can tell, I'm stalling a little bit because I'm trying to decide my MVP. I think it's going to be a guard, actually. I know, Mondo is kind of the obvious answer, but I heard somebody say this, and it goes back to Tyler Hansborough's senior year. Obviously, Tyler led us, every year he was here, but the change was the senior year when he was kind of leader. I know he started off his senior year injured a little bit, but Taiwan Lawson kind of took over, and he was kind of. I think actually Wayne Ellington won Final Four MVP, but I think Ty Lawson was the MVP of that team. Maybe not though, because otherwise his jersey would be up in the rafters. He was the MVP, like the team MVP of a national championship team. So maybe not, but I feel like he was kind of the leader. It on the court anyway. And he was playing great his sophomore year, but that junior year he kind of took control of the team. And obviously led us to a national championship. I think he has the record, or did at the point, or tied the record or something for steals in a national championship game. I feel like he kind of led us there. Wayne Ellington got the Final Four MVP, but so I'm going to go ahead and say it's RJ Davis. And I say that over Caleb Love just because I think he'll be more consistent, have those assists and possibly steals to go along with the points. I don't think Caleb may outscore him average wise or on a given night, but I think just consistency and the versatility. I don't know if that's the right word, but the different stats that he's going to put up because he's probably going to be our assist leader, steals leader. He very easily could be, and then if he's right in there with Mondo and Caleb Love for leading us in points, let's say he's our MVP of the season. So um, again, if Mondo goes out and averages 22 and 14, he probably should be our MVP. And he's going to break some records. He's going to break some double records, rebounding records. He should surpass Tyler Hansbrough as our leading rebounder all time at UNC. And does that mean at ACC as well? Did Tyler Hansbrough the most rebounds in the ACC? I don't know. We'll have to look that up, but that's going to have to be for the next podcast. Stay vigilant is a good point. I'm not even sure which one at this point you're talking about because all of mine are so good, right? No, I'm kidding. But again, I appreciate you guys for joining me. Just kind of previewing. I'm so ready to start talking about basketball and about this team and to see them. I've already told my wife like we're not doing anything Friday night. Like we're watching the while we're watching the exhibition. I just need to see some live action. I need to see them against another team, and I'm ready to spend my night, at least the first half, because hopefully at that point it's a Big Ten blowout. And if I don't pay as much attention, maybe I'm okay with that. But better not be close. They better come out and show out. But I appreciate you guys for joining me here on just pretty much no notice. I was going to say short notice, but pretty much no notice. You guys showed up, and if you're watching this or listening to this later, or even watching this later on YouTube, but any other podcast platform as well, I appreciate and love you guys as well. That's what we got here for tonight. We're going to start ramping these up here as the games start coming. We got a lot more to talk about, and we're going to have to talk more often in order to just kind of keep up on it all. So I hope that you will subscribe and join this season, join the journey of this season with me. And like I said at the beginning, help us to unite Tar Heel Nation, one podcast at a time. That is all from here tonight. Until next time, go Heels.